So intentional behavior versus stress response. We'll go through these quickly, you guys, because this is a part of it that's not going to apply as much to you. But a student says, it's too bright, they run over and they're shutting off the lights. Do you think that's intentional, or do you think that's because they're stressed out? Probably stress. Could be either, right? But probably stress. So they might need the lights off for a break. Why do people usually have challenges with lights, especially in buildings? The fluorescents, sometimes they can see the movement in them and everything, so, and they can hear them sometimes too. So that feedback, the noise feedback from buildings, really stresses the nervous system and can get the nervous system really angry. So you could have a student that is great and very functional outside of school, in activities, at home, with their friends, whatever it may be, and they come to school and they're just not as functional. They shut down a lot, they get upset a lot, they cry or they get angry and all those things. And oftentimes it can be an impact sometimes of the buildings themselves. That noise from the building causes more stress on that nervous system. I have a student like this right now in another school, and he hyper-focuses so much on one or two kids in the building. He literally jumped out of a window that was about 6 feet off the ground to try to get to one of the other kids that he was hyper-focusing on. Intentional behavior, crisis. Probably crisis, yeah. There's some mental health concerns there, some codependency concerns. You know, you've got to wonder when kids are having this, and adults too, when they're having those hyper-focuses on one person, like, I can't be without them, I need to see what's going on, what's happening. We see this a lot with teenagers, right? When they start getting into these unhealthy tweens, when they're starting to get into these unhealthy relationships, or they're starting to communicate with people on social media, and they're connecting, and they're over-connecting with people, making sure that you're keeping an eye on it and that sort of thing. There's definitely some apps you want to have more wariness about, like Discord and things like that. If your kiddos are on that, be checking that stuff out, because there can be other stuff going on there. How long does it take for toxic stress to occur? About 2 to 3 months. How long was COVID? Much, much longer. So, and I've seen this in a lot of the districts. Came back hybrid model also. Right after the COVID shutdown, came back the following school year at 5 days a week. We don't see the same intensity of behavioral issues. And then my school districts that came back hybrid, 2 days on, 2 days off, or however they did it, much higher behavioral issues going on, much higher emotional dysregulation going on. And a lot of it is because was that lack of consistency, that lack of structure in everything that occurred during that time period, because we had, not only did we have a pandemic, but kids knew that we were having a pandemic, right? They were seeing it on the news, parents were watching the numbers rise, they were hearing about people being sick, not having supplies, all of that. That all occurred, and then we came back to school, and then a number of other things happened where people don't feel safe, right? Between school shootings and other things that occurred, people don't feel safe. So you add that to it, the level of toxic stress has continued. So what happens with toxic stress? People have higher levels of cortisol in their body. They have less of an ability to access serotonin, oxytocin, and all those other wonderful neurohormones that we need. And they don't represent in this way as often. So you're looking for, like, do they have like their fingers out and now their knuckles tightened? You're looking for, you know, do they arch? I have a student I've worked with for a couple of years, and it's like this year is the first year we've been able to have him have like a more calmer and pulled back core and not have this stance, okay? Are they in constant motion? Are they pushing and pulling and doing all sorts of other things? Do they bite, hit, kick? Do they bump into things or fall? Do they make threatening gestures? You know, just stop is a big one, because it's like, I'm telling you to back down. When the palms are down, that's the signal that I'm saying, you need to back off, you need to back down, you need to step off me. Like, that's what it means. And people do it subconsciously a lot of the time. They don't know that's what it means, but when they do that with the palms pressed down, that's what their body is telling them. But what I'm really worried about is this kid. I'm really worried about this kid. Why? Because they can sometimes go unnoticed. They can sometimes be the kid who's pretending they're playing a video game or online or doing something like that, where it's more escape. They're hiding more than anything else because they're shutting down. They're looking away for a long time. They're always saying that they're tired. They're not trying to get to things that interest them anymore so much. They're not making as much eye contact. They have this body stance. Younger children, when they're anxious, they have this upright, pressed out chest and the shoulders moving ahead of the hips. They're not aligned. They're leading with the shoulders instead of the hip area. Could be low muscle tone. They're not really engaging in play. That's a huge concern if they're not engaging in play. They could be frozen a lot of the time. Their voice is very flat or low affect, except when they're angry or when they feel pushed. And they have, that turned down mouth. This is the kiddo that I'm really worried about because they oftentimes go unnoticed. I'm just sad today. I don't want to talk about it. And that's concerning because we oftentimes see things after it's much more progressed with this kiddo. And unfortunately, at that point, the pattern's been laid, and we have to be able to step in and help them. Hey, you seem like you're a little down. What's up? When so-and-so comes in, you seem to kind of withdraw. Is there something going on between you two? Kind of figuring out what's going on, because can this kiddo turn into that kiddo? Yes, and very quickly. Sometimes with just an incident occurring or something feeling like they're being pushed too far, they can go from that to that real quick, and then other incidences can occur. But we want to have our radar on this kid that has this body mannerisms and everything else, because this kid is saying, I need some support and I don't know how to ask for it, and I don't know what I need. I have no idea, or from whom, no clue. I just know that things don't feel right. If their baseline is that they always touch their face or twirl their hair, even when they're thinking, they kind of twirl their hair, then that's not a concern if we see that. But if that starts happening when we're talking to them about something and we're like, ooh, we're causing their anxiety to go up, that's not a reason to stop. That's a reason why we got to get more information. So are they having trouble with somebody? Friend or boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever, parents, have they withdrawn from people? If they always had a friend they talked about and now all of a sudden they're not talking about that friend, how come? When was the last time you saw them? What have they been doing? Do they have different interests? Figuring that out, what's going on with that. How's the quality of their schoolwork? Is it maintained? Has it improved? Has it declined? Where are they at with that? And do they feel it's at the level it should be? Typically work with kids who have more intensity with behavior, and oftentimes their expectations of themselves are incredibly high. Making an effort to feel pain, doing things to feel pain. My favorite strategy for that is having them hold ice, because they can feel the pain of the ice, but the ice actually sends a signal to the brain to send out hormones that actually force the body to relax. And it's a hypothermia reaction. So if you have them hold ice, it'll actually cause them to become more calm. Any of you have kids that you're like, you gotta go take a bath, and they're like, no, I'm not gonna do it. You can't make me, I'm not gonna take a bath. I don't wanna shower. I'm not dirty. Just some dirt, but I'm fine. And you're like, you're going, and you're like, push them into the bathroom, and they're like, no. And then you hear the water running, and you kind of peek in, and you're like, oh yeah, they're faking it totally. And you're like, get in the shower. And then they get in the shower, and you hear them in there. And like 30 minutes go by and you're like, you gotta get out. Somebody else needs water tonight. And they're still in there. So, and reason why is because now I'm regulated. I feel good. I just want this good feeling to keep going and keep happening. So I usually tell parents if they have a super dysregulated kiddo that they're working with, I'm like, try to get them to take a bath or a shower before they go to school. And they're like, yeah, I can barely get them out of the bed. So I'll take off my backpack if that makes me look really big. If the kid's really small, then I might step back a little bit so that I look like I'm more of their height, so the height is balanced. If they're a really big kid, then I won't need to worry about that, but I might also step back just to balance the heights. And then I'm shrinking the space. Because the worst thing is when you have someone who's starting to escalate and they're in a big space. You think about if you've ever been angry and you are in a big space, you want to talk louder. You want to have bigger movements and all that. You get them into a smaller space, their volume, their body motions, everything starts to come in on itself. It starts to shrink. So sometimes I'll move a kid, like I'll just kind of body position them so that they're moving forward, and I'll like have my body here and they're behind me. I'm still watching, but I'm holding them kind of in this space so it's small. So I'm making the space smaller for them. I do this a lot of times at home with my own kids too. And it's like, I'll just make the space a little bit smaller and they immediately start to come down and regulate. Being opportunistic about what's going on in the environment. So oftentimes a person needs proprioceptive feedback. What is that? That's your body's awareness in space. What is it really? Push, pull, lift, whatever. So if a kid is like trying to flip a table and I'll be like, oh man, can you push this over to me? And I'll have them like drag the table over to me or something like that. Oh, can we drag that one over there too? I've been in here with kids before where I'm like, oh, can you help me move these weirdo cushions? And they're like helping me push the cushions around and do that sort of stuff. So I'm using that proprioceptive feedback and I'm using whatever's in the environment to do it. Sometimes I'm even having the kid carry my backpack. I'm like, oh, it's so heavy and my back hurts today. Can you carry this? And they're like, okay, and they'll usually do it because I asked nicely.